The entire galaxy watched in silence. On the execution platform stood three figures, a human, a dragon, and an alien. Once, they had been the closest friends in the universe, brothers who survived wars together. But tonight, one of them was here because of betrayal. As chains of dark energy locked around the human and dragon, the alien stepped forward to claim his reward. He thought he had won. He thought his friends would die forgotten. But then, the dragon smiled, and the human whispered 5 chilling words. You chose the wrong side. What happened next would destroy an empire. Thousands of cycles before the galaxy would remember their names with fear and respect, 3 young warriors met on a battlefield that looked like the end of the universe. The sky above burned red. With falling ships, broken metal covered the ground like dead trees, smoke rolled across the shattered land, and everywhere there was fire. In the middle of that chaos stood Ethan, a human pilot from Earth. His battlesuit was damaged. His oxygen warning screamed. Inside his helmet, his ship had crashed only minutes earlier after enemy cannons tore through its engines. But Ethan was still standing, still fighting. He gripped his plasma rifle and scanned the ruins around him. Every instinct told him he was alone. Then, he heard a roar so powerful it shook the broken ground beneath his boots. From the smoke burst a creature of fire and fury, a young dragon with crimson scales and glowing golden eyes. His wings were torn. One side burned from blaster fire. But even wounded, he looked unstoppable. This was Drakthor, the last young fire dragon of his clan, proud, wild, and born for battle. The moment his eyes locked on Ethan, flames escaped his jaws. Humans had hunted dragons for generations, and dragons had answered with fire. Neither trusted the other. Before either could attack, another voice cut through the smoke, sharp and commanding. Drop your weapons. From the shadows stepped a tall, armored alien with glowing blue skin and silver combat blades. His movements were quick and precise. His eyes watched both of them carefully. This was Xyrex of the Vareth Empire, a trained warrior, clever and deadly. To him, both humans and dragons were enemies of the Empire. For one long moment, the three stared at each other. 3 warriors, from races that had every reason to kill one another, and then the battlefield shook. A deep mechanical sound echoed through the ruins. Enemy war machines, dozens of them. Massive black metal beasts rose through the smoke, their red optics locked onto all 3. Without warning, the machines opened fire. Energy blasts rained across the battlefield. The explosion threw Ethan backward. Drakthor roared and leaped into the air. Xyrex rolled behind shattered steel. They had no choice: fight together or die separately. Ethan fired first. His plasma rifle tore through one machine. Drakthor crashed down onto another, ripping it apart with claws of burning steel. Xyrex moved like lightning, slicing through exposed circuits with his twin blades. Again and again they fought back. To back covering each other, trust was not born in words that day. It was forged in survival. When Ethan was pinned beneath falling wreckage, Drakthor blasted it apart with dragonfire. When enemy drones surrounded Drakthor, Xyrex cut them down before they could strike. When Xyrex was nearly crushed by a war machine, Ethan tackled him to safety. By the time the final machine fell, the battlefield was silent. The 3 stood among the burning ruins, exhausted, wounded, alive, and something had changed. They looked at each other not as enemies, but as brothers who had survived hell together. That was the beginning. Years passed, and the galaxy learned their names. Ethan became known as the fearless human pilot, who never backed down. Drakthor became a living legend, a dragon whose fire could melt. Battle cruisers, Xyrex became famous for his brilliant strategies and unmatched speed in combat. Together they traveled from system to system, saving colonies from invasion, destroying pirate fleets, protecting worlds too, weak to defend themselves. Their victories became stories told across 1,000 planets. People called them the 3 Flames. Wherever darkness rose, they answered. And for a long time it seemed nothing could ever break them. But deep inside, Xyrex's fear slowly grew. He never spoke of it, never showed it, but every victory reminded him how fragile peace was. He thought of his homeworld, the blue oceans of Varith Prime, the cities of crystal towers, his family, his people. He feared losing it all. Then the shadow. Emperor came a ruler from the forgotten edges of the galaxy, cruel beyond imagination. His fleets conquered world after world entire. Civilizations vanished beneath his armies, even dragon clans fell before him. When the Emperor reached Varith Prime, he sent Zyrex a message, a private transmission. No one else heard it. Betray Ethan and Drakthor, help me destroy them, and your world will live. Refuse. And Varith Prime burns for nights. Zyrex wrestled with the choice. He thought of Ethan, who once saved his life. He thought of Drakthor, who called him brother. But he also thought of billions of innocent lives on his homeworld Fear 1. The day of betrayal came during their most dangerous mission. The three flames had discovered the location of the Shadow Emperors. Fortress hidden deep within the black nebula of Korath. If destroyed, the war could end. They flew together aboard their ship, just as they had 100 times before, Ethan at the controls, Drakthor, ready for assault. Zyrex at the system's console. Everything depended on timing, on trust as enemy defense cannons powered up around them. Ethan shouted for shield activation, Drakthor prepared to strike, and Zyrex placed his hand over the control panel. For one final second he hesitated, then he shut the shields. Down the first blast hit instantly. The ship screamed as metal tore apart. Warning alarms filled the cabin. A second blast crippled the engines. The vessel spiraled into the fortress hangar. Enemy troops swarmed in from every side. Ethan fought like a storm. Drakthor filled the air with fire. But there were too many. They were overwhelmed, forced to their knees in energy chains as soldiers dragged them away. Ethan turned his head toward Zyrex. Disbelief burned in his eyes. He did not speak. He did not need to. The look alone cut deeper than any blade. Drakthor roared with such fury the walls shook. His golden eyes locked onto Zyrex with hatred, but Zyrex could not meet either of their gazes. He stood frozen as his brothers were taken into darkness, and in that moment, the strongest friendship in the galaxy was shattered forever. The Shadow Emperor kept every word of his promise. The moment Ethan and Drakthor disappeared into the prison depths of the fortress, Zyrex was taken to the heart of the imperial capital. A world of black towers and endless storms, a planet built to remind everyone who ruled the galaxy. There, before thousands of commanders and millions watching across every system, the Emperor placed his hand on Zyrex's shoulder and named him Savior of the Empire. The reward was beyond anything Zyrex had ever imagined, a palace of silver glass high above the clouds, more wealth than entire planets possessed, personal command over fleets that once answered only to the Emperor himself, and most of all, a seat beside the throne, the highest honor in the Empire. Across the galaxy, his face appeared on giant screens, the alien who had helped destroy the dreaded Three Flames. To the Empire, he was a hero, a symbol of loyalty, a warrior who chose peace over rebellion. Crowds cheered his name, leaders bowed. To him, the Empire celebrated. But every night when the cheers faded and silence filled his chamber, Zyrex heard something else, a roar, deep and furious. Drakthor. It came through his dreams like thunder. Then there was the silence. The silence hurt, even more, because in that silence he could see Ethan's eyes, not angry, not hateful, just disappointed. That look haunted him. He tried to bury himself in power, in duty, in endless meetings and war plans, but guilt followed him like a shadow. Weeks became months, and then the reports began. At first they seemed small. An Imperial prison station near the Outer Rim went dark. No survivors, no distress signal. Then a supply convoy vanished inside the nebular expanse. Its wreckage was later found drifting through space. Every ship burned from the inside. Soon military outposts began falling one after another. Entire bases reduced to smoking ruins overnight. Security footage always showed the same impossible image. A black warship, silent as death, moving through darkness like a ghost. No signal, no identification. just black metal and crimson engines. Witnesses who escaped spoke of fire raining from the sky. Some claimed they saw a dragon larger than any living creature. Others swore they saw a human in dark armor walking through plasma fire untouched. Panic spread quickly through the Empire. Whispers filled every command center. The dead had returned. The shadow. Emperor dismissed it all. He called the reports exaggerated lies made by frightened officers. No prisoners could escape his fortress. No rebels could threaten his rule. But Xyrex knew better. Deep down, he knew exactly who was behind it. They were alive, and they were coming. Fear wrapped around him tighter with every passing day. 1. Night. He locked himself inside the Imperial Archives, a forbidden place containing every classified record in the Empire. His hands shook as he searched for the truth. When he found the prison files, his blood ran cold. Ethan had not been executed. The Emperor had ordered him tortured day after day, interrogated for every military secret he knew. But Ethan never broke. Not once. Instead, he listened. He learned. He studied the fortress systems, memorized every weakness, every defense code, every hidden route. Drakthor had suffered even worse. He had been chained beneath the fortress in ancient underground chambers built long ago to imprison dragons. There the Emperor had tried to break his spirit, to strip away his fire, but something unexpected happened. The pain awakened something sleeping inside his bloodline, an ancient dragon power thought lost forever. The Flame of Kings, a force spoken of only in legend. His fire changed, burning darker, hotter, stronger chains that could hold entire dragon armies melted beneath his rage. Together, Ethan and Drakthor escaped, not by luck, not by mercy, but by force. They tore through the prison levels like living destruction. Security recordings showed Ethan moving through soldiers with terrifying precision, Drakthor turning steel corridors into rivers of molten fire. The fortress had lost nearly half its army trying to stop them, and after they vanished, they did not run. They prepared system by system. They gathered allies, freed slave worlds, joined them. Rebel fleets hidden for years rose from deep space. Dragon clans thought extinct answered Drakthor's call. A storm was building, a war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Xyrex stared at the records for hours. His chest felt hollow. He had not just betrayed his friends, he had helped create something unstoppable. Part of him wanted to rush to the Emperor to reveal everything, to strengthen defenses before it was too late. But another part of him, the part buried beneath months of guilt and regret, wanted something else. Forgiveness. He knew he did not deserve it, but he needed to try. That same night, he opened a private transmission channel, one only Ethan would recognize. For several long moments, there was nothing but static. Then the screen flickered. A single message appeared. No image, no voice, only 5 words. When the stars burn, red judgment comes. Xyrex read the message again and again. A cold wave passed through him. He understood. This was not a threat. It was a promise. For 3 nights, he barely slept. Every sound made him jump. Every shadow felt alive. The entire capital seemed tense, though no one knew why. Then on the 3rd night, it happened. The city alarm screamed without warning. Xyrex rushed to the palace balcony and froze above the capital. The black, endless sky had changed. The stars themselves were glowing red one by one, as if the heavens had been set on fire. Then shapes appeared among them. Hundreds. No thousands of ships emerging from the darkness. And at their center flew a creature of fire so massive it blotted out the moonlight. Its roar shook the entire planet. Xyrex did not need anyone to tell him what it meant. Judgment had come, and this time there would be no escape. The sky above the imperial capital burned like the end of time. Red fire stretched across the heavens. Warning sirens screamed through every tower. Citizens ran into the streets in panic. And then the rebel fleet arrived, not in scattered waves, not as a desperate attack, but like a storm built over years of rage. Thousands of ships tore through the crimson clouds, their engines blazing like stars. Dragon riders flew between them, massive beasts of flame and shadow roaring across the sky. The Empire had ruled through fear for centuries, but for the first time, fear belonged to them. The outer defense stations fired everything they had. Cannons lit the darkness. Missiles streaked upward. Energy shields rose around the capital. It changed nothing. Dragon fire rained from above, hot enough to melt entire towers in seconds. Warships exploded like sparks in a furnace. The Imperial fleet collapsed before it could even organize, and at the center of it all, leading the charge, were the two warriors. The galaxy once believed dead Ethan and Drakthor. They had changed. Ethan no longer looked like the fearless pilot who once laughed in the face of danger. Now he looked like judgment itself. His black armor was forged from ancient dragon scales. Dark fire pulsed through the cracks of its surface. His eyes glowed with cold purpose. Every movement carried deadly precision, and beside him flew Drakthor. No longer the wounded young dragon from the ruined battlefield. Now he was enormous. A king of fire and wrath. His wings spread so wide they covered entire palace towers in shadow. His scales burned like molten metal. And when he roared, the very air shook. From the highest chamber of the palace, the Shadow Emperor watched the destruction unfold for the first time in his life. Uncertainty touched his face. He turned sharply to Xyrex. Stop them. That was his command, simple, cold, absolute. But Xyrex could not move. His legs felt frozen, his throat dry. Everything he had feared was now standing at the gates of the Empire. His betrayal had returned to face him, and there was nowhere left to hide. Below, Ethan landed before the massive palace gates. The impact cracked the black stone beneath his boots. Drakthor descended beside him like a falling sun. One blast of dragonfire struck the gate's steel, melted instantly. The entrance collapsed inward, and the final battle began. The Emperor unleashed his elite army. Thousands of his finest soldiers poured into the palace courtyard, armored giants carrying weapons designed to kill dragons, the strongest force in the Empire. They lasted only minutes. Ethan moved through them like a shadow, fast, precise, unstoppable. Every strike was final, every movement practiced through months of war. Above him, Drakthor became living destruction. His flames turned soldiers. To ash his claws tore through armored tanks as if they were paper. The courtyard became an ocean of fire and broken metal. Nothing could stop them. Step by step they advanced deeper into the palace, until at last they reached the throne room. The great black doors exploded inward, and there sat the Shadow Emperor, still smiling, still calm. As if he had already won, Ethan raised his blade. But the Emperor only laughed. Then he looked at Xyrex and spoke words that froze the room. Did you really think your homeworld was ever in danger? Xyrex stared at him in shock. The Emperor rose slowly from his throne. Your people were never threatened. They obeyed me long before your betrayal. You traded your brothers for nothing. The truth hit Xyrex harder than any weapon. His knees nearly gave way. Everything he had done, every lie he told himself, every sleepless night, all of it had been built on deception. He had betrayed Ethan and Drakthor for a lie. The Emperor laughed again, mocking him, enjoying his pain. That was the moment something inside Xyrex finally broke, not in fear, not in guilt, but in clarity. He turned from the throne, ran to the central control console, and slammed both hands onto the interface. Warning alarms exploded through the chamber, the palace shields powering the Emperor's. Defenses shut down instantly. The Emperor shouted in rage, traitor. But it was too late. With a roar that shook the world, Drakthor crashed through the throne room ceiling. Stone and steel rained everywhere. Fire consumed the chamber. The Emperor tried to flee. Ethan was faster. One strike of his blade shattered the Emperor's weapon. Another drove him to his knees, and with Drakthor's flames closing around him, the Shadow Emperor fell. His empire ended in fire. As the palace burned around them, silence filled the Throne room smoke curled through broken walls. The red glow of destruction lit everything. Slowly, Xyrex stepped forward, then dropped to his knees before Ethan and Drakthor. His head lowered, his voice shaking, he begged for forgiveness. Not as a commander, not as a hero, but as a broken friend who finally understood the weight of what he had done. For a long moment, no one spoke. Only the crackling fire answered. Then Ethan stepped closer. His voice was calm. Forgiveness is not something you ask for. Drakthor lowered, his massive head beside him. His golden eyes locked onto Xyrex. It is something you earn. They could have ended him there. Many believed they should have, but they did not. Death would have been too easy. Instead, they gave him a greater punishment. Exile, he would spend the rest of his life rebuilding every world the Empire had destroyed. Alone, no throne, no power, no honor only. The endless labor of repairing what betrayal had helped. Break years passed. Peace slowly returned to the galaxy Ethan became protector of. The free systems, a living symbol of human courage, Drakthor rebuilt the dragon clans, restoring a legacy once thought lost forever. And Xyrex, he traveled from ruined world to ruined world, building homes, restoring cities, helping those who once suffered under. The Empire, every sunrise reminded him of his failure. Every sunset reminded him why he could never stop, because some choices leave scars deeper than war. Some betrayals cannot be erased, only carried, only remembered, only regretted forever, and somewhere. Among the stars, the legend of the three flames lived on, not as a story of friendship, but as a warning to the galaxy that trust once broken may never burn the same again.